Hi, my name is Jason Burton. I own a company called Heirloom Precision in Mesa, Arizona, where I build custom 1911 pistols. I want to welcome you to an episode of Recoil DIY. Today we're going to be covering how to detail strip your 1911 pistol. You can have some variation for what I'm going to show you here based on your make, model, or what features you may have on your gun. But this is going to cover the basics of how to detail strip the pistol for cleaning, maintenance, or what have you. I've started here with my gun field stripped. And the first thing we're going to tackle is how to take apart the slide assembly. We're not going to be removing sights on this. We don't want to have to re-zero the gun. Sights are essentially a semi-permanent fixture to the slide, in my opinion. But we do need to take the firing pin spring, firing pin stop, and extractor out of the gun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pin punch, and I'm going to start with the slide setting on its rails with the sights facing upwards. I'll take the pin punch and I'll index the firing pin and depress it until it stops. Once it stops, I'm going to leverage the firing pin stop down with my pin punch. The firing pin stop is going to start moving down in the raceway, and once it's down, it will capture your firing pin from springing out of the gun. But you do need to be careful. So the simple way I have to ensure the firing pin and the firing pin spring doesn't go flying across the room is to simply take the slide, turn it muzzle up, then grab the firing pin stop and pull it out of the gun. From here, I can set the firing pin stop aside. If I lift the slide straight up now, the firing pin and firing pin spring are going to fall out of the back of the slide. Your extractor may or may not fall out at the same time. If it does, great. If it doesn't, you'll need to take your pin punch and access the hook portion of the extractor and depress the extractor outboard and down in order to get it to protrude out of the rear of the slide. Once the head of the extractor is sticking out of the rear of the slide, you can grab it, pull it out of the gun. From here, you can take the firing pin spring off of the firing pin, and your slide is now detail stripped. Again, we're not going to take the sights off the gun. Don't want to do that. Next, we're going to move on to the frame. First thing I do when I take apart the frame is I take the thumb safety out of the gun. This is maybe one of the most complicated things. It's not super complicated, but it takes a little bit of wiggling to get it out. So what I'll do is I'll hold the frame in my left hand. I'll cradle it like this, and I'll take the index finger of my left hand, and as I push on the pin for the thumb safety, I'll grab the lever on the safety and I'll wiggle it up and down until it comes out of the gun. As you can see, the frame has a series of lobes cut into it that allow the thumb safety to be removed when it's in the center position, neither off nor on. Here, set the thumb safety aside. Next, I'll grab the plunger tube detent assembly and I'll pull it rearward out of the plunger tube. Depending on the make, model, size of your gun, your grip safety may or may not come out of the gun at this point. If it does, great, you can take it out and set it aside. If it doesn't, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to lower the hammer. I would say lower the hammer carefully. I would capture it between your fingers. I wouldn't let it smack the frame top. So I would grab it between your index finger and your thumb of your left hand. I'd press the trigger and ease the hammer forward. Once the hammer's been set to rest, take your pin punch and access the mainspring housing pin on the bottom of the frame. You can either now use a hammer to drive the punch, or you can simply push down and drive the pin out towards the right side of the gun. There's the pin. From here, you can now remove the mainspring housing. Easy way to do that is to simply cock the hammer. While cocking the hammer, it'll press the mainspring housing out of the bottom of the gun. I can grab it here, pull it out, set it aside. Now, you should be able to remove the grip safety. From here, you'll then remove the sear spring. At this point in time, you'll need to turn the frame over so the left side of the frame is setting down on your bench. Take your same pin punch, access the hammer pin, and push it out towards the left side of the gun. You can now remove the hammer. Take the pin punch again, access the sear pin, and press it out towards the left side of the gun. Once it's protruding out of the left side of the gun, you can grab it and remove the sear pin. The sear and the disconnector are now not captured inside the gun, so the easy way to get them out of the gun is simply to turn the gun up and they'll fall out. This is your disconnector, this is your sear. Next, you'll need to remove the magazine release. In order to do that, you'll need a screwdriver that is appropriate to your pistol. Some pistols use a mag catch lock that has a slotted screw. Some use one that has an Allen. Your pistol may vary from mine. I use a #1 screwdriver in order to access mine. So I'll grab the pistol in my left hand, and with my left index finger, I'm going to press the magazine release out towards the right side of the gun, while indexing the mag catch lock with my screwdriver. I'm going to apply pressure in a counterclockwise position while depressing the magazine release, and at a certain point, the mag catch lock will begin to turn freely. Once it does, turn it counterclockwise until it stops. From here, you'll be able to push the mag catch out towards the right side of the gun and remove it. You'll note that the mag catch lock and spring are captured in the magazine release itself. Now, with the mag catch out, you can turn the gun over and press the trigger out to the rear of the frame. Your pistol is basically detail stripped at this time. You'll note that I did not take apart the mainspring housing nor the mag catch lock. You can go ahead and remove the internals from the mainspring housing if you wish, or you can simply add oil or whatever lubricant you choose from the top. Same goes for the mag catch and the mag catch lock. From here, we now need to reassemble the pistol. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the trigger. I'll insert the trigger from the rear of the frame to its at-rest position. Next, I'll take the mag catch lock assembly, and I'm going to insert it from the right side of the frame. I'm going to take my screwdriver, and I'm going to index the mag catch lock. Same thing we did when we detail stripped it. On reassembly, though, instead of turning counterclockwise, I'm going to turn the mag catch lock clockwise while pressing the magazine release about halfway out of the gun. The mag catch lock will stop, and the magazine release will spring out towards the left side of the gun. From here, it's now captured in the pistol. Now we need to reinsert the disconnector and the sear. Take the disconnector and insert the head into the disconnector channel in the frame, and I'll take the sear and straddle the disconnector. Next, I need the sear pin. Sear pin goes in from the left side to the right side. So I'll start it in the hole, and I'll take my pin punch, and using my pin punch, I'll access the sear to align it with the hole in the frame. As I'm doing this, I'm putting a little bit of tension on the head of the sear pin. So once the holes are aligned, the sear pin will start to fall into the frame. Once the sear pin, sear, and disconnector are aligned, you can push the pin all the way in. Now I'll take the hammer, insert it in the back of the frame, take my hammer pin, and like the sear pin, it goes in from the left to the right. Now I need to insert the sear spring. What I'll do is I'll take and fold the hammer strut forward, take the sear spring, and the key portion of the sear spring I will index in the slot in the frame. And once there, I can simply drop the sear spring, and it will basically align itself so that the 3 leaves of the sear spring are in the proper position. Now I'll take my mainspring, insert it into the back of the gun, and I'll align the hammer strut with the mainspring housing cap, like this. Again, based on differences in pistols, you may or may not need to insert your grip safety at this time. If you do, before the mainspring housing is pressed all the way in and captured by the mainspring housing pin, you need to take your grip safety and feed it into the gun. Easy way to do this is to take your left hand and simply hold all of this together like I'm doing here. Now, take your mainspring housing pin, start it in the frame, press the mainspring all the way in, and you can either take your pin punch or a non-marring hammer and drive the pin in until it's flush. Now, using my left hand to retain the grip safety, I'm going to go ahead and cock the hammer to its full cock position. I'm going to take my plunger tube detent assembly, and I'm going to insert it into the plunger tube. You'll note the plunger tube detent assembly has a small pin end and a large pin end. This can only go in one direction. You might be able to start it in both directions, but it will only fully go in one direction. The small end goes towards the muzzle. Now I'm going to take my thumb safety, and with the hammer cocked to the rear, I'm going to start the thumb safety in the hole. But you'll notice now I've got to press the detent inboard in order to allow the safety to drop all the way into the frame. So I'll take a small screwdriver or a pin punch or something. You can even take your firing pin if you have it still accessible, and I'll depress the plunger tube detent while pressing inboard on the thumb safety. Once it starts to go, take the pin out, press it all the way in. Just like when you took the gun apart, the thumb safety only goes in or out of the gun in what it is basically its center position, neither off nor on. Has to be in the middle. From here, we'll go ahead and reassemble the slide. I'll take my firing pin and I'll put the firing pin spring back on it. You'll note that the firing pin spring has two ends. It has an open end and a coiled end. The open end has no tension on there. The coiled end has tension once it starts to get towards the end of the firing pin. So with the coiled end, I'll insert it onto the firing pin. Once the spring is on the firing pin, you can go ahead and turn the slide over so it's resting on the sights. I'll take the extractor first, and I'll insert it into the extractor channel. Then, I'll take the firing pin and spring and insert it into the firing pin channel. Next, the firing pin stop starts in the raceway here. I'll take my pin punch and I'll depress the firing pin until it stops. Once the extractor is aligned with the firing pin stop, you should be able to start it and push it in the rest of the way. From here, the gun is in its field stripped position and you can reassemble the pistol as you normally would. My name is Jason Burton. I want to thank you for joining us here at Recoil DIY.